Hello, everybody. And you know what? I've just realised that I haven't done this.
Okay. Yeah, I did think something didn't look right, and it was the
Something didn't feel right,
top
did
and
it?
bottom, top and
And
bottom.
now this, and now
Ah,
that.
leave it.
There you go. Leave it for a minute. Hello, Stephen. How are you?
Good
Welcome, by the way,
afternoon.
everybody, to Wow
Yes.
Ergonomics.
Hello. Yeah, I'm good. Very good. Just still sort of recovering from the event with Guy Osman on Tuesday this week that it was a huge success on the day, and then the amount of sort of LinkedIn coverage, be it pre, during, and after, was sort of quite mind blowing, to be honest. So
I
it was a
saw
bit of
that.
a. Did you see it?
It's almost like everyone was like, kind of like, I was there.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
an I was there moment. So it was a little bit of a sort of a who's who of Wow Ergonomic guests as well, because there were so many people. I thought, you've been on before, you've been on before, you've been on before, you can come on. So we had, I'm going to miss someone out here. Now let me have a go. Andrew Shepherd was there, Flock. Gavin was there from Ergo Chair. Guy obviously was there. Guy's been on our show before. Alison Thompson was there. Chris, who was on the other week on the show, and I'm sorry, Chris, I forgot your surname. He was on the show, and it was just like Jim Taylor from Orange Box was there.
He hasn't been on the show.
Who hasn't been on the show, but he should be on the show.
We should.
Yeah, and we rolled on to Nigel Osland, Rosie Russell, loads and loads of people. It was a fantastic day, really, really good, great venue, loads of good feedback about the whole thing. So I think it's something that will be reoccurring at some point later on in the year. So still sort of just brilliant. Yeah, it was really, and there was such nice. And you know what? Sometimes you see people make nice comments, and you think, actually, is a bit of lip service, but it genuinely wasn't lip service. It was really engaging as well. There's about 40 of us in a room, but I think at some point everyone raised a point, made a point, contributed. It wasn't just as if it was 4 or 5 people and it was all just about them. It was really, really sort of engaging and inclusive on so many different levels. So yeah, great event.
Love that.
Well done
so
to Guy.
Who did you spy? Who did you spy that you have asked to come on to Wow in the future?
Who have I spied? Well, Nigel Osland, who was there, who was one of the key speakers, was very good, and he's got a book as well that's come out that I need to get into. But he covered a lot of topics that I think would be really interesting, and Rosie Russell as well. So I do need to follow up with both of them. But they were sort of two of the keynote speakers would be slightly over. There were 3 or 4 of us, in fact 5 of us, who got up and covered some bits. But both of them had some really interesting things to say. And I say I've seen lots of copies and photos of the slides and all that sort of stuff, and we are going to get them. So I'll share them with you, and I think it'd be interesting for us to get out, get in touch with 2 or 3 of those people and pull them on the show on Friday.
Sounds fantastic. A great week for ergonomics.
Yes.
I bet nobody sang.
Did they sing? Thankfully, no, knowing some of the people who were there.
Right, yeah. Of course, if I'd have been there, I would have done. And as may one of our guests today. We have 2 guests.
2 guests.
We are about to bring them both on. I'm going to press the button now. Now it feels okay because it's at that time.
Yes.
Let's say hello to Serena and Kim. Hello, both of you.
Hello.
See, it doesn't hurt.
No.
Kim was a little bit worried, weren't you? But it's all fine. Now, Kim, the eagle-eyed amongst us will know that you've got a record on the wall behind you.
I do.
What's that?
I do. Well, so I play the piano, but my husband does drum and bass music. So he has a record label called Core Breaks, and his artist name is Keith. So KEEF, and he has quite a few followers, I believe, on various different bits and bobs. So yes, he's a big drum and bass fan.
Wow, there you go. Serendipity, you see, happening already. Because Serena here is a musician as well as an NLP practitioner. So it's wonderful. There's a lot of music in the room. I feel that already. Kim, we've invited you on because you wanted to say something to all of us about a very important subject. So do say a little bit about who you are, and then let's broach the subject, and we'll all have a little chat about it.
So it's an interesting chat. It's not necessarily one that you always talk about, but unless anyone's been hiding under a rock, today is International Women's Day. And I started to see posts coming onto LinkedIn about how to make like real change as opposed to just messages of pink washing or whatever. And I was thinking about what would make actually a real tangible difference to how comfortable women feel in the workplace. So I work in HR. I work in the HR for a company called Unigloves. And one of the things that I was really proud of was just pop in some tampons in the toilet so that if anybody needed one, they could just help themselves. And that meant that you didn't have to hide them in your bag, or if you got caught short, you didn't have to worry. You didn't have to go and ask all of your friends to borrow one. You just have some in the toilet. And it got me to thinking, why are they not available in all toilets? We don't bring our own toilet paper to the toilet when we go. So why are we bringing tampons? They're still a fundamental part, or other period products. They're a fundamental part of going to the loo if you're a woman. So I have started a campaign to make tampons as readily available as toilet paper in whatever company you're in.
Fabulous.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, that's absolutely brilliant. Any thoughts on that, folks?
I think you got it right when you said about the toilet paper. That is true. We don't bring toilet paper with us where we go. So I think that's amazing. Well done for your courage to be like, yes, I'm doing this for women and actually making change instead of just something different for International Women's Day. So thank you.
I mean, it's not even a thing, is it? Even if you go shopping or wherever, the cost of the loo roll is just consumed by the running costs of wherever you are. So why is it that tampons and period products aren't just treated in exactly the same way? So they should be in offices, shopping centres. I mean, they are in schools, so that's a big step forward. But they should just be everywhere, And there'll be some people who'll be like, I want something special. I want to do this. That's absolutely fine. They're not mandatory, but if you want them, they're there. Help yourself.
And I think that analogy you've made there, where you linked it to the toilet paper at the very start, that's the sort of little, catch is the wrong word, but it's the sort of thing that just gets people thinking a little bit more. If you can sort of simplify it down and they can go, and like Serena instantly picked up on that. So, well, hang on a second. If you put it in that context, why isn't it? And why wouldn't you? So I think once you get that sort of context, it then is a little sort of hook that makes people understand it and maybe question and challenge their employers or their councils or whoever a little bit more, because it's something they can sort of, it breaks it down onto a simple level. And then it's like, well, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. So if you could like my page from Flow. And the campaign is that, wherever you work, just ask them to put some period stuff in the loo.
Because we touch, we talk about workplace ergonomics and health and well-being. This absolutely falls under that, Graham. But I mean, I don't know this, Kim. What's the legal obligation of employers? What's the legal obligation of maybe in, say, council facilities? What are people obliged to do? What are the good stories you hear? What are the stories that you don't, that aren't good around this? Well, there must be companies who are doing this really well, but equally there's probably people or organizations doing it really, really badly.
I think it's a tough question. Don't challenge me on the legals. I don't know. But I think in most workplaces I've been to, in most toilets I've been, they aren't provided. I think it is something that is happening more now. So they are provided in schools now. I think that's a big step forward. But I haven't been to any workplace before Unigloves where they have been provided. There are companies who are doing it, and there are companies like Hey Girls who are providers of them, and they also donate to other charities as well. So for everyone you buy, I think they donate one. But so it's making a movement. But this is about just, it's International Women's Day. Let's make it really take off.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm thinking one of the areas that or one of the kind of companies that you may want to get involved with this are cleaning companies.
Yeah.
Because surely that would be a great opportunity for them if you're actually cleaning the facilities of within a building, etc., and you may be replacing hand towels and everything else and whatever as part of your cleaning provision to that company. You could offer that. You could say, and we're going to put tampons in here as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think often they use the products that you provide as well as a company. So, but yeah, it's definitely an avenue to explore, isn't it? Is how do we just make it more? I don't really get why it's not a thing. Why it's a thing anyway? Do you know? It doesn't. When you actually stop and think about it, it's one of those things that everyone knows. You buy your own tampons, you take it to the loo. But when you stop and think why, it really doesn't make any sense. And I think hopefully in 20 years' time, in 10 years' time, this might not be a conversation and might be like really alien to people.
I think it's brilliant. One of the people that have been on this show before that would help you with this, and definitely the person to speak to, is Jodie Greer.
Yes.
Who's a diversity and equality specialist within businesses. I don't know whether you've heard of her before or met her before.
Haven't, but I would definitely look her up.
Yeah.
Please do get in contact with her, and I'm sure she will help you sing this to the right people as well.
Absolutely.
And start, making a fuss about it. In fact, maybe meet up and see what you can do.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Kim, thank you for raising this, and I hope this has been a helpful platform to you. We will make sure there's a clip of you talking about this that you can then share as well.
Amazing. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
No, it's an absolute
Very welcome.
pleasure. Thank you for coming along.
Okay, great.
That was amazing, Kim.
Thank
you for that. Isn't it great? I love that. Serena, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Graham and Stephen?
I'm fine. Now, Serena, I've interviewed you in the past in a different guise, in a different thing, because about your music. But today we're here to talk about NLP. How did you get into NLP? What is NLP?
Yeah, so I was a life coach before. My mum is a counsellor, and she's always used life coaching with me and my brother Ryan, particularly when we were growing up in school. She'd always kind of have personal development plans where she'd work with me and Ryan, both with our school subjects, but hobbies as well. And we'd come up with action, like goals and things that we wanted to achieve. And she would help us with that. So I've always been in the life coaching sphere. And I think after I finished university, I already got my life coaching qualification because I did that alongside third year university. And then afterwards, I enrolled in this business thing. It was like a company, and I don't work with that company anymore. But we all had to get coached by a coach, even though you were a coach, because everyone needs help. So I met a man called Steve Brooks, who was my assigned coach. And he was a master NLP practitioner. So in my sessions, he would I didn't know what NLP was. He would tell me about NLP, and he would do techniques with me, and he would say it's an NLP technique. So I kind of loved it from there. And then I always, and I don't know if you guys agree with this, when someone's really passionate about what they do, it makes you more interested in that subject too. So for me, Steve was always he's always been enthusiastic about NLP. And I had my graduation speech in that year of 2021, and he took me through a NLP technique called Step Into Your Superhero. And I can kind of go into what NLP is now. So NLP stands for Neuro-linguistic programming. So neuro, as you can tell, it's all to do with your brain and subconscious mind. Linguistic, it's about the language that you use, either the language that you say or language that you tell yourself, but also non-verbal communication and behavior patterns too. And programming is how you structure your behavior patterns. And obviously NLP is structuring it in a way to serve you for the better. So he took me through this technique called Step Into Your Superhero, because I was saying a speech, my graduation speech, in front of 1,200 people.
Wow.
In St Albans Cathedral. So I was a bit like, okay, this is
that's
huge.
a place and a half. I love St Albans.
That's your neck of the woods, isn't it, Graham?
Well, it's where I originally grew up. We used to do a pilgrimage every year as a youth group across to St Albans. Yeah, it's a wonderful cathedral. It is massive, though. It's a massive building. Yeah.
So with the Step Into Your Superhero technique, I would come up with, I think I only chose one superhero, but you can choose most, like other people, like 4 or 5 or something. For me, I chose my best friend Thomas, who unfortunately passed away with bone cancer in 2019. So what you do is, before you go into the technique, you think about that person. So you write down your most memorable experiences for me, with Thomas, what he would say to you, how does he make you feel, and things like that. So adjectives and things like that. And Steve would then go and tailor a script, write a script, so that when he takes me through the techniques, I step into my superhero, and the language that he'll use will be like, what would Thomas be saying to you? Imagine you saying your speech, all about visualization. Imagine Thomas lifting you up. Imagine Thomas giving you that spirit to recite confidently your speech. And that works with your subconscious mind, because all of a sudden, that's the way that the speech is structured. It works with your subconscious. So when it came to my graduation speech, it was almost like he was there with me, not because of anything like trancey, but because it was within my soul. And it helped me, instead of thinking about nerves, it reframed my thoughts. It reprogrammed me to be like, this is huge. Thomas would be so proud. So that's one example of how NLP can be used to serve you.
That's really interesting. Do you know what? I mean, I've never really looked into NLP. But that example that you were giving there, when I first started in radio, I had training in radio. And when I first started, I completely sucked. Because...
How honest?
Well, because you do.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you worry about is you suddenly get told, well, people tell you like viewing figures. Yeah. So I got moved off of graveyard shift, which for anyone that doesn't know is sort of like 2 o'clock in the morning, where I was literally playing songs from the 1940s, etc. Hang out your washing, it's awful. To an afternoon show, and it was a magazine style show in the afternoon where we've got to interview people, and they said, oh yeah, so this show typically gets an audience of 300,000 people.
Wow.
And then you start to think about that, and you start to get nervous because of that. It's a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of people listening to me. But I had some coaching in radio, and it's interesting how much of that was similar, because actually one of the things that and this person had training with Bruno Brooks. Hi, Bruno. I know Bruno's actually on. Bruno is on LinkedIn. Connected to me on LinkedIn. Yeah. Hi, Bruno, if you're there. Ex Radio 1. And one of the things that they'd got from him is that what you need to do is you need to focus on having a conversation with one person.
Okay.
You're having a conversation with one person only, and really get into that kind of emotional connection of having that conversation with that one person, and that kind of, backwards and forwards with that one person. Almost imagine them saying things back to you as you're saying it. And once you get into that headset, you completely forget the fact that you're talking to 300. It doesn't matter how many other people out there. You just get into that headspace of being emotionally connected to one person. And the best DJs do that. They and you hear it in their voice. And I've heard Chris Moyles talk about it since,
right.
Just almost talking to his best friend.
Okay.
Because then the audience become your best friend. Yeah. And it's thinking about that kind of emotional connection. So it's interesting that you say that, because and I guess a lot of people may talk around various things that are maybe kind of NLP linked, but they don't necessarily say that they're NLP, or they don't necessarily know that they're NLP, if you know what I mean.
It's true. NLP is so natural. And I think when I was studying for my qualification, I thought to myself, everyone uses it in their everyday language, because it basically, studying NLP means you're able to understand. For example, with clients, it's just helped me with life coaching, and I found that I use more life coaching, but NLP's at the back of my head because it's so natural. And in NLP, it's about understanding how someone views the world. So there's different representational systems. There's visual, there's kinesthetic, there's auditory, and auditory digital. And auditory digital is like, for example, you will be able to tell if someone's more visual or kinesthetic based on the language they use. For example, I noticed, Graham, I don't know what you said, but you something said, I feel music in the room or something. That was kinesthetic. And you may have just been saying that as like a throwaway kind of thing, but you may notice when you're speaking to someone, they may say, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. And they may say different words where you're able to pick up. As a coach, it's like, okay, so when I take you through a technique, and I work with people with anxiety, I already know, okay, they're quite a visual person. So I'm going to have them visually look at something, and that's the way I'm going to coach them. I'm going to use colors to help them kind of have, for example, bright colors to associate with good memories, to reframe something that makes them feel really anxious, which we may like dark it out and make it more gray, so that it's kind of out of their minds, and we kind of replace it with a new memory. So that's an example of using someone's representational system to help with coaching. I myself, probably because of music, I'm so kinesthetic, and it's all about feelings and emotions and things like that. So I've noticed with my own music, I use a lot of NLP in my music to kind of make me feel certain emotions so that I can overcome things. And I wouldn't say it too much with my previous singles. That's been more about kinesthetic, as in releasing emotions. But my single that comes out in April, it's all to do with NLP, as in like I used a lot of NLP to kind of help me. And the song's about, in an NLP technique, you'd have a question. It's called a meta question. When you're helping someone to kind of think about their dream and goal that they wish to achieve, you would say to them, how would you feel when you have it? And how will you know when you have it? So I used that to write this song called Believe Again. And it's about meeting someone that saves your life, your forever person. And it was a bit of fun that I did in a writing challenge. And I was like, past life energy, I'll know it based off of this past life energy that I feel. And in the song, it's all about, the lyrics are like, a touch that gives me warmth I felt before, a whole new other energy overflow. That's so kinesthetic, because you're kind of filling yourself up with uplifting energy. And there's another technique used in the song that you would say to someone in a technique, and it's called Future Pace. And the lyric of the song is, time knows you made me believe again. And if you was to take someone through a song, a technique, you would maybe say, and time knows that you will be able to achieve da-da-da-da-da-da. So in the song, I used it as, time knows you made me believe again. Of course I'm going to achieve this. I'm going to get to this place where I'm feeling on top of the world when I meet my forever person. So that's an example of how it can be used in music.
That's fascinating. I want to know, right, Stephen is in sales. So can this be used in a positive way, not obviously a kind of commercially, a destructive way, but can it be used by salespeople?
I think so, because I think, and I'll go off my experience and the sort of the people that I work with, generally, we're talking in smaller groups. We're talking maybe 1-on-2, 1-on-3, 1-on-4. Actually, I think most salespeople are probably, once you get beyond those smaller groups, maybe don't have the experience or the technique to how to present to larger groups. So I think it'd be really useful then from a sales perspective when you're on those occasions where you need to speak to a wider audience. And actually, like you just said, they're focusing on that one-on-one as if you're sort of talking to your best friend. It actually is, well, just do what you would normally do. That would be the sort of bit. I think sometimes if you're not used to speaking to bigger audiences, it can be quite intimidating. But actually, just that one-on-one
how did you
sort of
find it
focus.
when you first, let's be honest, how did you find it when you first started doing this?
It's quite, when you're not used to doing it, it can be quite sort of, intimidating is the wrong word, but I think there's an element of apprehension when you start off doing it. But as you then sort of build up the experience and the sort of the chemistry that goes with when we speak and we get involved, and then when you bring in other people, it becomes a lot easier with time. But sometimes I always found the difficult part was maybe used to leave you to do a lot of the questioning, but what I try and do now with sort of building up the confidence and sort of picking up bits of experience is quite happy to sort of take on a bit more of the sort of the questioning part of the show. But that again sort of comes with experience and learning as to, and that, as you say, that one-on-one, you're just talking with someone who's your friend, or you're presenting to someone who's your friend. If you think about that, actually the whole thing becomes a lot less intimidating and then becomes a lot more natural.
Yeah. I've got a question for Serena. Now, I used to have this thing that I used to talk about, and it was kind of based on my studies of psychology, right? But I had this thing that I used to talk about with clients when I was doing assessments, right? Because one thing that I noticed is, we say to people in the workplace, you need to get up and move away from your desk, right? Not just move, but move away from your desk. Right, it's actually good to go for a walk, or it's good to go for a wander. And one of the things I noticed, that there's some stuff in psychology about framing, right? And I'd noticed that if people stay literally in the same space all day, that really does impact on their mood.
Okay.
Right. And the way that they start to see things, right? And part of that is that they're not actually changing the frame that they're sat in, right? And it's not just a physical frame; it's kind of a mental frame as well. They almost don't see they almost don't see the rest of the world kind of happening in a way, and they start to become quite introspective in terms of their own time frame and everything else, and they start to be more conscious of how long they've been there, and it also kind of impacts on their ability to kind of think outside the box as well, because they start to narrow down everything. Can you make any links between that? Because it was kind of very loose science for me, but it was one of the reasons I used to say to them, it's really good to kind of get out, not just because it kind of reframes your head as well, but can you see, as an NLP practitioner, any kind of correlation between just sitting in a cubicle or one space all day long and the impact that would have on you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that does link to NLP in terms of like your peripheral vision. Because if you think about being in one place, it's all just fixed in one space. So, for example, when you said that, it made me think about corporate environments. And if you really love your job, I guess that's going to fill with all the excited feelings and uplifting, joyous feelings and things like that. But if you think about just being trapped, it's like you're in a box. So you're kind of just in one fixed mindset in a sense. So when you kind of go outside, if you think about it, everything opens up, your vision opens up. And although that may seem like really quite reflective and a deep way of thinking about it, because we're looking through the psychology of it, that's why you'd probably be in one mindset, because you're just in that little box and you're not really exploring. The possibilities are more open when you're open. So if you kind of just stay in one place, it says a lot about you. And that's something that NLP practitioner would probably be able to pick up as well. For example, if I was coaching someone and I'd say, okay, so tell me about what you normally do. And they say, I get up, I go to work, I go home, and then it's the same routine over again. You can kind of, all of a sudden, I can see colors with that, as in like
Groundhog Day.
It's there. Yeah. It's like black and white. It's not wide sort of thing.
See, I think this is why it's really important to try and bring in people from different practices to kind of perhaps talk about all of this stuff together. Because if you tell somebody to do something from one perspective but not necessarily give them all of the perspectives on it, it doesn't have the same weight. When you say to somebody, and this is one of the things that anybody working in the field of ergonomics, hi everybody, will perhaps have experienced at one time, is you've got to go in and you've got to speak to somebody about the way that they're working in their environment at their desk or whatever, and you say, oh, there's all of this great stuff that you can use, etc. And one of the things you must do is take breaks. Everybody always within the industry goes, yeah, and you must take breaks.
Yeah.
People go, I'm too busy.
Yeah.
Or people go, well, yeah, but this is a very important job. And or my line manager doesn't like me having breaks. And all of those kind of negative things, etc. But it needs to be reframed. Because just saying to somebody, you need to take breaks, isn't going to cut it, because there are too many excuses. But if they can understand all of the reasons why they need to take breaks, all of the benefits, and if in a management level, if the management can understand all of the benefits of someone taking a break, including this kind of reframing and maybe, opening up the person to a wider experience, so that actually they start thinking about things. If you pay really creative people to go into an office space and sit in one place all day long, are they going to stay creative? It's a really good thing to talk about, isn't it? And
then we're sort of getting back into the whole thing about hybrid working, aren't we? It all sort of pulls back as to where, and this is one of the things that was covered at the event on Tuesday, was about location and trying to, and I think it was Andy Lake who was one of the presenters, and again he was talking about not going to the office just for the sake of going to the office, and not just doing it for the sake of it, and putting a load of creative people in getting them all to go and meet together. But what's that going to do? Is that the right thing? Just to tick a box to say yes, they've all gone in and they've all sat together. Is that the right way to get people to work, and how to sort of think about it a little bit more? So yeah, it all sort of pulls back to the same sort of themes. And you mentioned about taking breaks, again, a theme that we discussed the other day. But if it's just seen as, I've taken a break, I'm going to tick a box, that's not what it's there for. It's all those things that taking a break can actually add for you as an individual and for your health and productivity. But if someone goes, oh, I'm too busy, right, I'll just go for a quick 5-minute wander, they're not actually getting the benefit of the break. They're having a break, but they're not getting the benefit of the break. And it's a bit like listening and hearing, isn't it? They might sound like the same thing, but they are very, very different. And it's getting people to sort of recognize how they can benefit from doing that, but not just them. What are the other benefits that will come from undertaking that activity?
Serena, can NLP help us understand other people as well better, as well as understanding ourselves? How does that work?
So I think that's what NLP does. It helps us, but it helps us understand other people. So in my actual studying of NLP, we had a whole module on how based on obviously what I said before, what people say, you can learn about them, but also the non-verbal behavioural characteristics of them. So the way that they look at you. There was like a whole module on knowing how, if you are in rapport with someone, in terms of like the body language. And there's this thing called matching and mirroring. So ways to kind of know if you're in rapport with someone, which is great for work situations where you are working as part of a team. So it's great in that way, because, for example, if you're a part of a team, you want to make sure that you're working well together. And I've also found as well, as I've got older, because of NLP, there are ways to know if someone's nervous when speaking to you, and then you can do subtle things to just kind of make them relax a little bit. And there's this thing of like I said, matching and mirroring. That can be with your vocal tone as well. For example, if I'm in a coaching session and I'm speaking so loud like this and the person speaking really quiet, that's not great, you know. It's not great. So you may start with your normal voice, obviously your normal volume, and for example, if they are really, really quiet, an NLP technique would be lower your voice so that you can build rapport, so that they can kind of like feel a bit more comforted and they don't feel like you're just screaming, like you're just shouting at them in a way. So
like
that's
you say,
you said
matching and mirroring. So almost replicating what they're doing to make them feel at ease and a bit more open to engage with you.
Yes.
I've had that training on sales training courses before now. Have you ever had that, Stephen?
Yeah, gosh, yeah. I mean, there's lots of things you do, but yeah, absolutely. It's trying to, you know, if you're going to try and connect with someone, it's, you know, whilst you're not going to be exactly the same person, trying to sort of mirror. And it was a great thing that Serena said there, mirror matching, sort of matching up with how they behave and their tone and their conversation. So if you're trying to build that rapport, it's easy if it's someone that it's relatable to them. If you go in and you're completely polar opposite, as you say, someone who's very quiet and you're very loud, how are you going to build that rapport and relationship up and understanding if you're coming from two separate ends of the spectrum per se?
Yeah, and again, you know, it kind of works when you're doing stuff like this. It helps both the person at the other side of things to feel more involved in the conversation, but it also helps in the kind of delivery of the conversation and the weight of the conversation as well. Look, we all use our hands sometimes, some of us more than that, others. But but I've talked to people before about, like, you know, when you're talking like this on a, you know, if you quite often when people first come on podcasts, for example, and I'm trying to record them for podcasts, and because you can tell that they're nervous because they speak really fast and everything is delivered really quickly, and you say, if you just slow yourself down a little bit, and breathing's really important as well, right? Taking and that's to do with singing as well. Breathing is incredibly important in singing, because it allows you to get you know, the most power or the most control or whatever out of the next thing you say. But it's also the same when we talk, because if we just slow things down and occasionally just maybe lean in, we bring people into, you see how that works? You bring people into the conversation, do you not? Yeah. It's clever stuff. It's clever stuff.
And it's interesting what you were saying, though, because that thing about speaking faster has to come from the nervousness side, that they just want it over and done with. That actually, if I speak really quickly, my turn's over and it's someone else's turn to speak, so I've done my bit. But as you say, just taking your time and just thinking about it, a little pause, as if you're having a natural conversation. You would naturally pause or, you know, do something like that, but it just becomes unnatural in that sort of situation, doesn't it?
I think sometimes what happens is that we put out rules that are misunderstood.
Okay.
In terms of communication. And I'll give you a really blatant example of that, but then this might kind of lead you to think about other examples of that. Okay. But again, when I first started in radio, we had a kind of a rule book in terms of presenting. And one of the things that was drummed into us, drum, is don't have dead air. Now, dead air, for anybody that doesn't know, is the point on the radio where that happens. Okay. Right? Yeah. And it was seen as such a, you know, it was in all of the sort of books and whatever. Don't have this. You mustn't have dead air. You know, that's the worst crime out, is to stop and have everything. But the trouble is with that is that then sets our minds to thinking we should talk all of the time, and it's important to fill the space. But you can control the space with space as well. It's again the same with music. My friend Troy, who's a fantastic musician, world-class drummer, I think we've spoken about him before now. One of the most important things he ever said to me is the space in music is as important as the sounds.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was interesting you said, Graham, there about sales training. One of the, and I was thinking when you sort of asked me the question before, a few things started running through the mind. But of course, we were always taught in sales as around the golden silence. So sometimes you have to just have the conversation, sometimes just leave that little pause or break for someone, whoever you're talking to just process and think about what have you just said to them. So if you just carry on talking and don't leave those little interludes, if you want someone to sort of think about what you've told them, sort of process it. If you're going to carry on talking, you don't give them the opportunity. It was always called the golden silence, that after you're going through certain parts of the sales conversation, leave those little strategically placed subtle breaks, like Troy said about the drumming, and it is important. Just leaving those little spaces. But that slightly goes to, you mentioned about your radio training then and the dead air time. It's just finding that balance between the two. You need it, but it's putting it in the right place and in the right format.
Yeah, it's learning to breathe, I think, is a really important thing. That's a really important element, just learning how to deliver that. And would we all be in a better place, Serena, if we actually just slowed things down a little bit and gave a little bit more time in terms of how we thought about things and then how we delivered things? And I mean, look, for all of us, how many times have we lost a set of keys at home, right? And then what you do is you run around in rage and panic, going, I don't know where the keys are. What? Where are the keys? I had them here this morning, whatever.
Yeah.
And then someone says to you, look, now just slow down. Where were you? Okay, I was. Oh yeah, I went in there. And then you go there and they're on the desk or whatever. Yeah. But to some extent, do we need to do that in other areas of our life?
Yeah, I would say, like with NLP, the greatest thing about it is that it's all about reframing behavior. So it doesn't it's not saying, oh, when you use NLP, you're going to float and you're never going to be angry at things. You're never going to be anxious or things like that. It just helps you to respond better because you have techniques within you that you already know that you can use any time to kind of help. So, for example, about the keys thing, instead of just being out, which is your normal reaction. So it doesn't matter if you do get angry. It's about being able to reframe that mindset to a more healthier mindset so you can move forward as opposed to just being stuck with anger all the time. And that just goes up and up and up and up. It's very much like I work with me and Steve, my business partner. We work with corporate professional women with high levels of anxiety. And what we don't say is once you have this, once we take you through coaching and this NLP program, we're not saying to you that you're never going to get anxious, because anxiety is still healthy to have. It can protect you in situations. What we're telling you is you will know that it won't get to a really high level because you'll know how to bring it down. And that's what's really beneficial about it. And I was always saying, if people, because it's so natural, and I guess like teachers probably use it without even realizing that they teach it when they're with children. If people were more aware of it, like in primary school or particularly secondary school, I think it would help a lot of people growing up.
Yeah. Well, you've got to say we've got such high numbers of mental health issues, etc. at the moment. Then I think we need to look at anything that may potentially help in that arena. And I think the stress thing is really interesting in terms of the kind of correlation with what we do in ergonomics, etc. as well, because how many times do you go and see somebody, Steve, and then actually, yes, physically they may be manifesting as having a bad back or musculoskeletal issue, and maybe, yes, actually the way that they're working or whatever is exacerbating that. But where does it start? Where does that come from? And so many times when I saw people, they were tense. Yeah. And if you're tense from a stress point of view, then your muscle's going to be tense. You will adopt postures and you will adopt positions that are more tense in the first place. So you will, it's going to, you know, yes, getting into a better chair and getting into better habits with that, sitting more upright, using something that puts you at a better level, that's all going to help. But you still need to deal with the tension. You still need to deal with where that's coming from. And, you know, ultimately, if it comes, part of it comes to do with how people frame themselves in conversations or whatever. And, you know, we talk a lot about getting management culture right, but people need it's not just about going, well, in order to get the culture right within this business in terms of management need to be saying this or saying that, or need to be open to this. They also need the techniques in place to enable them to do that. Yeah. And if you've got management that is, it's interesting that you're working with corporate managers, etc. You know, what are some of the main reasons why those kind of people are so tense in the first place, or what you know? How, when you start drilling, obviously you can't mention cases, but once you start drilling down into it, where does it come from?
It's a mixture of things. I think it's the corporate working environment in terms of the stress, because there's lots of pressure on you, pressure and deadlines and things like that. And most of the time it can root back to like personal life, but also family and childhood. Because, you know, we go through things and it's not normal, like everyone's gone through something. So when you're in that corporate environment, you may be thinking, well, this pressure is too much and I feel like I could be doing something more. So sometimes it could be to do with that as well. And sometimes the anxiety, yes, from all the stress and pressure, but it can also be from feeling stuck and feeling unfulfilled and feeling like I can do more and I want to do more. I just don't know how to achieve that. So a mixture of everything, really.
I think we've got your business partner watching. I just
really?
thought it. Yeah, because he messaged me about 3 times this morning. So if you are watching, do say hello in the comments. It'd be lovely to hear from you, Steve. Are we doing a good job? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. we're all looking over to the comments now again. Is there going to be a thumbs up or thumbs down?
If people are looking, thinking, why are they all looking to the side?
What's over there?
It's because on the screen, that's where the comments are. Yeah. So if a comment suddenly arrives, that could be Steve. Before we go, just tell us a little bit more about your music. How is it all going this year?
It's going really well, thank you. I feel like I've had 3 singles to kind of settle me into the process, because I never released music before. So I feel proud of myself, because I feel like with each single that's kind of come out so far, I've got a bit more used to the process of releasing. And now it's like the new song Believe Again comes out in April. It feels like a brand new chapter, because it's much more happier, but it's more like hopeful. I kind of see it as hopeful. So I wrote loads of songs in December, and I don't know if I briefly mentioned that to you when we last spoke, because I know it was around December time. So it's been like quicker turnarounds to get music produced and recorded, and feeling excited for it, really.
Yeah. Oh no, it's fantastic. Does it help you an awful lot in your life, having that music there?
Oh, it does. For me, it's my purpose. And every time I release music, I always include that as part of my caption, but I mean it wholeheartedly, as in, for me, the dream is not getting to this and achieving this. It's literally living my purpose. And as much as when I sing or I put anything out, that is me showing this was my dream, this is my purpose, and I'm living it authentically to me.
Stephen, do you think we're actually, just talking about that briefly before we go, do you think we're seeing more and more people within the corporate world actually having these other elements to their life other than the work bit, etc., and that's part of the balance that everybody's kind of looking for?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, and a lot of that goes back to COVID, because I think that's where people started to sort of do a lot. You think all that time where you couldn't do anything, people took on a lot of new hobbies and activities and interests, and I think that's carried on post that period. So I think that probably has happened, that people maybe, let's be honest, to fill the time, opened themselves up to a lot more things. And there's probably a lot of those have stuck, and therefore that has helped create the balance. I think, like a lot of, we've said a number of times, I do think the ability for people to sometimes work from home does create a natural balance, because you do take out, for some people, part of the commute. That can take up to 2-3 hours of people's day. So I think that has helped create space in people's lives that have allowed them to sort of take on other interests, and then that, by definition, creates that balance. But that would be my sort of thought on it. With people of, they've memberships of clubs and things, activities, engagement are at record levels. So has that created that interest? Does it create the time to allow them to do it? And therefore it feeds into that balance between work and personal life and hobbies and interests.
I think it's the great challenge that businesses are going to face in the near future, or are beginning to face now. And I think it's the thing that's going to be really define businesses, or larger businesses in particular, which is how they give people the time to be whole people, rather than just employees of the company. And that's really important, because people are, and that's why management, the whole point of the whole area of culture and management and whatever is being so looked at the moment, is because we've come out of a period where ultimately you went to work for a business, and it's almost like you whether it was written or not, you owed your soul to the business whilst you were working for them. But that's changing now, and especially with sort of like Gen Z coming through and looking at businesses, they're setting the agenda, and they're saying, well, actually, what I want is I want to be a whole person. I want to do a bit of this. I want to help you as a business, but I also want to do this over here. I want to, I want to do that over there. All of these things are important to me, and I want to embrace all of those things. The difficult thing for organizations is allowing that level of flexibility whilst trying to make targets, whilst trying to be productive, whilst trying to be commercial, I suppose. And it's, we're going to have to, people are going to have to look at really different ways of doing stuff in order to get stuff done. It's an exciting but difficult time, and it's why we have to continue to have conversations about the whole thing. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us in this conversation today.
For having me. Thank you so much.
Takeaways from today: remember, folks, do join the campaign to get ladies' products into the toilets around the nation. And if you have been listening and you're a business today, and you've suddenly thought, oh no, I don't do that, start doing it. It's not difficult. Use today, International Women's Day. Actually, just put a post out there on social media. Say, do you know what? Watched this morning, heard that, thought, I'm not doing it. Now I'm going to do it. Let us know. I think that's what a great practical way to actually do something. And thank you to Serena, who now we're all going to be thinking a little bit more about reframing our life. And what colour are we at the moment?
Colour. I'm feeling a yellow. Yellow's good for me.
I think yellow.
Yellow.
Oh, that's kind of a yellow.
Yellow.
Notice I said feel yellow, so kinesthetic always comes in. I can have a colour, but I'll feel the colour.
Yeah. Or have you ever been? Is it synesthesia? Have you ever been synesthetic?
I think so. I think that's exactly what because I didn't know that term, and then my cousin said it to me, and I realised that's exactly what it is, and that's what it is with my music as well.
Can hear colours, colours. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic thing. So thank you to Serena as well. Please do check out Serena's music as well. You'll love it. I'm just saying, but you can have your own opinion, but you will.
You will.
If you have enjoyed this, please do share it with your friends, your family, people at work that might want to see it. Previous episodes of this are all available at wowergonomics.com, where you can go and fill your boots right now. with exciting stuff from the past. It's almost like a history book, but better. And until next week, thanks for joining us. Bye for now.
Bye.